All right, well, we will go ahead and get started then. So good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all. Let's start with events from yesterday. Tell me about your big wins from yesterday. I know there were some.
My customers got a second pre-approval and we were able to get their numbers down to where they want them to be. So they are very happy to go today look at some new construction with Dream Finders in Tavares. So we'll be going over to Deer Island and meeting with a sales rep there I've talked to him yesterday and he sounds amazing and he has his stuff together, lots to show them, and hopefully we can go under contract today or this week.
Yes. That is fantastic. Good for you.
Thank you.
What else we got from yesterday?
Oh yeah. Well, that was yesterday too. And actually, I got questions about that. I'm going to we're putting multiple offers in on multiple homes for the same buyer. Are there things that I need to be aware of differently than just watching one or two at the same time? We're putting in a total of 6.
6
at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would prioritize that down to like 3 because that's
I've got their first 3 that they like. We got them in order. They like them all.
okay.
We were down from 20 to 6.
Is this the Bells?
Yes.
So they've gone from finding a house here and there to finding 20?
Well, now that I got her not to be afraid of alligators, things change.
Sorry. So just to bring you all up to speed, I had a conversation yesterday with Scott. He's working with some customers who are moving here. The wife half of the customers, they're super excited about moving here, but she is terrified about the prospect of coming across a random alligator. And so because of that, she asked that Scott not send them properties that were close to water of any kind. And so he called me and said, what do I do about this? Because they're missing out on a lot of really good opportunities for homes just because they're close to some kind of water. So we talked about it, came up with some strategies, and apparently it has worked because it's gone from like they find a house here, they find a house there. Now all of a sudden there's like a house dump that they're just interested in, obviously. So yeah, that's interesting.
Actually, I'll read this exact email to you. It says, we like the 2 you sent us this morning. I'm okay with the lake pond being 3 houses away. The other one has a huge yard. The chickens there have not been eaten yet by alligators. So,
wow. Chickens always help in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it's the second house I showed them had chickens.
Sorry, that's just really funny to me. All right, so you got 6 houses. I think that what Ben said is a good idea. I think narrow it down to their top 3 and maybe submit those offers simultaneously. And if something happens with those 3 or with 2 of the 3 or whatever, then go on to numbers 4 and 5. Rather than just kind of putting them all in at the same time, only because that's going to be a lot for you to juggle and try to stay on top of. Yeah, I wouldn't go in on all 6 all at the same time. That's going to be a lot.
All right, then one last question on that. So they want me to, one house we put an offer in on expired the offer.
Mm-hmm.
Do I just call the agent, say we're still interested, or we got to do more paperwork?
So check with the buyers first and make sure that they still want to go in on that property. If they do, then yeah, give the listing agent a heads up. Okay. And then the expiration date can always be amended later on.
All right, so it would be smart for me to have all 6 of the ones they want go to the seller, or at least they have them signed. And they think I'm doing what they want. They just submit 3 today. If nothing is, when they expire tomorrow, submit the other 3. Is that kind of what you're telling me?
I mean, you can, if you just want to have the documents all written so that you can just send them if things fall apart, that's fine. Okay. Just make sure you're able to keep all of those organized.
Thank you. I will do my best.
Okay. Let me know if I can help in any way.
Oh, you will be helping, I'm sure.
All right. What else from yesterday, from this morning? Big wins.
I got an email from Christy the lender
Mhm.
that she reached out to I had a lead that wanted to take steps to fix her credit
Mhm.
and potentially buy a house. So I got an email from Christy that she spoke to the lady. She gave her things to do. The lady was super excited. She's ready to start those steps and really does want to purchase a home. But in the meantime, she wants to find something to rent so that she can get out of her boyfriend's house or ex-boyfriend's house.
Mhm.
So I think I might try the home partners route,
Yep.
because
Sounds like a
with that, she can find a house, rent it from them, and then not buy it if she doesn't want to, correct?
that is correct.
All right.
However,
Well,
there's a caveat there, an asterisk, if you will.
okay.
Yes, she does, or I should say, no, she doesn't have to buy the home. However, she is committed to the lease for one full year.
The full year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just make her aware of that. But other than that, it sounds like a perfect opportunity for home partners.
Awesome. Well, she is on my agenda for today.
Fabulous. All right. Well, then let's change it a little bit. What about any lessons you learned from yesterday or this morning?
I have a huge, ridiculous lesson, guys.
Okay.
Very expensive lesson. A $1,700 lesson. All right. So my sellers who are buying, they're supposed to close on their house today. Yesterday, the buyer did their final walkthrough and she asked, where is the water softener? And I'm like, oh, it should be in the garage on the side of the house. She was like, oh, we don't see it. And I'm like, that's strange. Let me call the seller to see where it is. Call the seller. The seller is like, oh, we didn't, we said we didn't want to include that in the sale. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay, well, let me look at the contract and then I'll get back with you. So I look at the listing contract. Sure enough, I did not put water softener. And then Ben was like, check on the MLS. I checked on the MLS and it said water softener included. So I've been scrambling around trying to find somebody to install a water softener or give them a credit. The seller does not want to give them a credit, even though the buyer has been gracious to give them thousands of dollars in the credit. So, I mean, and it is my fault. So yeah, guys. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
So what is the lesson learned from that?
Let me tell you what I'm not going to do. Future reference. I would not be putting water soft. I don't care if it is included, boo. Y'all gonna have to add that.
What is a water softener?
Yeah, go ahead, explain that, please, because
in Florida there is high mineral content in the groundwater, and so there are these devices that, just making it very simple, there are these devices that through a process reduces the mineral content. The benefit of that is, I'm sure you've seen it before with faucets, or sometimes you see it around the water dispenser on a fridge. There's like this white crusty buildup. So that crust essentially builds up on a lot of the interior surfaces of like water heaters, and essentially reduces the life. Plus, and I know this sounds silly, but you actually end up spending a lot more in soap, because your soap it's not as effective in water with high mineral content. So yeah, a lot of homes in Florida have water softeners to reduce the mineral content, primarily calcium.
The more you know.
You'd think I know what the hell I'm talking about.
And they spent
Hey, I'm believing it.
they spent $9,000 on their water softener. So of course, the buyer wants that one.
Yeah, they're not cheap. We have one installed on our home, and you know the ROI is realized over time. It's not like you install it today and it pays for itself tomorrow. It pays for itself with not having to replace your water heater as frequently, and yeah. Yep. Any other lessons learned from yesterday or this morning?
Appraisal contingencies, beware, because they are real. Yeah, so the buyer for my house ended up having an appraisal contingency, and I went back and reread appraisal contingency, and it basically states that in the case, if the appraisal comes back short, the buyer has two options to either elect for the lower appraised value or terminate this appraisal or the contingency and just move forward with the sale with the agreed purchase price. And of course, the buyer chose to go with and it says that the buyer and the seller agree to modification of the financing provision, which I signed off on. So I believe that I have to move forward with the sale at the appraised purchase price, which sucks.
Wait,
Because
what?
it came in $15,000 short.
No. Why do you believe that?
Well, because I'm looking at the appraisal contingency addendum, and it says if the appraisal states that the appraised value of the property is less than the above value, then within 3 days after the above date, buyer shall both deliver a copy of such appraisal to seller and deliver written notice to seller, electing to either A, pay an adjusted purchase price, which shall equal $5,000 above the appraised value. So she is paying $5,000 above the appraised value, but that's still $10,000 less than what the agreed purchase price was. The adjusted purchase price shall not exceed the purchase price in paragraph 2 of the contract, or B, waive and remove this contingency and continue with this contract without regard to the appraised value of the property. Seller and buyer agree to modification of financing provision of the contract by deleting paragraph 8B73. If buyer fails to timely obtain an appraisal or blah, 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 then it's a no-go. But I signed off on that, and I feel like that states that I've agreed to the modification to the financing to whatever option they choose, right?
You are correct. This appraisal contingency is not the traditional as-is addenda to the contract appraisal contingency, and is worded in such a way that pre-locks you in as the seller to close at the adjusted purchase price based off of the gap contingency without giving you the option to cancel a contract as the seller if the appraisal comes in short.
Yeah. So that blows. But
So what is your lesson learned from this event?
read the
lesson learned, carefully read Keller Williams's addendums because they're tricky. But no, to really actually really read through what you're agreeing to before you sign off on it.
So they already given you notice that they're going to proceed 5,000 above the appraised value?
They gave me notice that they're going to elect option A via email. Yes. Written notice. Yes.
All right.
So
It's a lesson learned today.
yes, it is. That's okay. I'm still selling it for twice what I paid for it. So I'm still winning. But
There you go.
there you go.
And you're not paying real estate commission. So that's a 6% bonus there. Great. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, right. 2.5. But yes.
Well, if you want me to discover another out of the contract, let me know, and I'll see if I can squeeze something together.
Okay. Thanks, Ben.
Let's get a water. So this morning we're doing a couple things. We're actually going to do a buyer consultation, which we haven't done in a while. I do have a real one coming up. We got a text yesterday, a blind text from a person named Zachary, who said one of my clients, Daniel, referred him to me, and that he and his partner are looking to buy a house that they can rent on their own. and they want to buy that house and have it rented until their apartment lease ends in April, so that once their apartment lease ends, they can then move into that house. So they are first-time home buyers, so they have no idea what they're doing. So I'm working to schedule a buyer consult with them so that you guys can join into that consult, actually see how it works, and see how I do those consults. But the good part is we're actually going to do that today on this call. So for that, I need a volunteer. Saxon, I know, is not feeling the best today. So who wants to be the buyer? And I'm going to be the agent. And you will be able to basically make up a backstory about your life and the fact that you're buying. The only caveat is you have to be a first-time home buyer. So do I have any volunteers to be the customer in this conversation? Otherwise, I will pick you not at random. I was going to call on Matt, but I think he's tied up in calls this morning too because he's in the office. So Gavin, will you be my customer today?
Yes.
I can be your customer. It's fine.
The second voice?
Huh?
Oh, Matt can do it?
Yes.
Can you turn on video?
No, I can't right now.
Why not?
Because I said I can't. Gavin, never mind. You be the customer.
Thanks, Gavin. This normally happens on Zoom calls. So, all right. So we just got on our Zoom call. We are going to pull up our presentation. Let me see if I can find it. 1 second. So guys, the tee up for this conversation that I'm having with Gavin. Gavin, is your name actually Gavin for this, or is it something else?
You can just be Gavin. Yeah, that's fine.
So the tee up for this conversation I'm having with Gavin is he reached out. We had a conversation, right? It's a personal referral, from like a friend or a sphere of influence, or just a team lead that kind of just had an easy conversation. And so I teed it up so that Gavin and I can have this Zoom call and go through the details in a very specific manner, right? So let's get started. Hey, Gavin, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, Ben?
Good, good. I'm so glad that Jeremy introduced us to via text, and I'm excited that you are buying your first home this year. You'll have to excuse me. That is a consistent person, apparently. But how soon? You said you wanted to get this process started by the end of the year. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'm still in a lease though, but want to lease the house once we close, and then once that lease is up with my renters, then take possession of the house.
Okay, cool. And how? When does your lease end?
So my lease is not over until July of next year.
Okay. Cool. And have you talked to a lender yet, by chance?
I have not.
Okay. That's no worries. We have a bunch of them, so we'll definitely be able to connect you with one. Do you have a specific area that you're hoping to make that purchase in?
Davenport area I heard is really good when it comes to rentals. So.
Okay. Yeah, it is. It's very popular. There's a bunch of long-term rentals and short-term rentals there, so you can definitely go either way depending on, the restrictions of the community. And I know you work at Disney with Jeremy. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been working there?
Gosh, for almost 10 years. So
10 years. Holy
Yep.
crap. You definitely don't look that old, sir. You must be a face character or a prince or something.
a coordinator, but yeah, entertainment. So
Perfect. Well, let me pull up this presentation. So let's do that. So like I said, my name is Matt, and I'm so happy that Jeremy introduced us today, and that's just my general contact information. So today I'm just going to walk you through the process of buying your first home. So a little bit about me. I live in Orlando, but I was originally from New Jersey. In my free time, I love going hiking, camping, kayaking, and traveling. What do you guys like to do in your free time?
oh, go to the beach for sure.
The beaches here have been great. I haven't been to the beach since I moved down yet, but I'm super excited to go, especially in December. I hear they're still warm, even though it's like, Christmas or freezing everywhere else.
Right.
So that's so cool. So I know you guys are first-time home buyers, so I'm going to start from the basics. So forgive me if you already know some of this information. But what is a realtor, right? So we work on helping with buyers determine their buying power, and we also assist you in your home search. Now, nowadays, technology is so advanced that you guys have the same access to the information that we have, right? Zillow basically has all the properties that are listed that we have on our MLS, because the MLS, which is the database that we use as agents, is actually what feeds Zillow, right? So we do less of helping you identify the right home just because you're getting the same notifications for home searches. But what we really focus on is making sure you do the due diligence when purchasing the home. We negotiate on your behalf, and then we'll guide you through the sales process. And that's where the value of our service comes in. So does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So just a heads up, there's two types of realtors in the world. You have the listing agent and the buying agent, right? So pretty self-explanatory in the sense that the listing agent represents the seller. They negotiate for the seller, and the buyer agent represents you and negotiates on behalf of you. But in the state of Florida, both agents, the listing agent and the buying agent, are actually paid by the seller. So the real estate commission won't be a part of your closing costs. So your closing costs are conservatively estimated at about 3% of the purchase price, whereas the seller's closing cost is about 7% because they pay both sides of the real estate commission. Most of your closing costs are going to be lender fees and title fees, okay? We do have a transaction fee, but that's only for document storage purposes. We actually have to store documents for like 3 years past the transaction. And so that's just more for paperwork and admin. So once you do go under contract, you're going to get a lot of communication from our transaction coordinator. And she's the one who just makes sure all the paperwork is aligned and that we follow compliance purposes, okay?
Sounds good.
So like I said, how we are paid. So we're paid by the seller. We also are paid by the builder. So I know we haven't talked about your price range yet, but there is new construction in the Davenport area. So if you do decide to go new construction, we are paid by that new construction builder. Fun fact, we do have to be with you during those tours in order to represent you. Otherwise, the builder rep, they don't know that you're working with someone, and they don't necessarily always include us in the conversation, which could be at your detriment in the long term. So, do you guys like the idea of new construction or want something?
Not opposed to it. I mean, I wanted to try to get some income off of the rental before we move into the house, before we're out of where we're at right now. So I know that the builds kind of take a while. Yeah,
they do. And we can also identify, rental properties that are already rented in our MLS, which you can't really do, on Zillow. So we can actually filter by tenant occupied properties so that there's a tenant already in place. But there are some risks to that, but we'll go over that later. So just in general, your roadmap. So we're going to start with the process of getting pre-approved. So after this, I'll connect you with some of our lenders who can get you pre-qualified. They're going to ask for a bunch of documentation. So I know you are W-2 at Disney. Your spouse, where do they work, and what's their income like?
So they also work at Disney, but their income's not the best right now. They got displaced during COVID, so they're not really back in their full-time role. So I'm not sure if that's going to pose an issue.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Excuse me. So it could. So that's a great question for the lender partner, and they'll be able to kind of identify what makes the most sense when they do your debt to income ratio calculations. So I always recommend as a couple that you apply together jointly first. And then if for some reason, if one of your credit scores is much lower than the other, or there's income issues, then one of you could be removed and they could see if you could qualify just on one of your incomes. Both of you could still be on the deed and the title of the property. But the lender is going to determine whether individually or together, should you go for the qualifying and underwriting for the loan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't know that though. That's cool. Okay.
Mhm. And how long was he at Disney prior to being displaced because of COVID?
So he's been there for 5 years with the company in total. So
Cool. And I know you work in the gardening section pulling weeds at Animal Kingdom. What does he do for Disney?
he is right now scooping up all the poop from the animals at Animal Kingdom. So we work closely together, you know. So I see him.
Cool.
But before that, he was an executive, you know, but still only 15 an hour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know Disney, that Mickey Mouse is really, holding those purse strings really tight nowadays.
Yeah.
But thank God didn't they ever increase the minimum wage or something?
Yeah, it's 15 now. So
Oh, cool. So is that how you guys met when you go pulling weeds and scooping up poop in the same animal pen?
yeah.
Oh, so cute. I love that romantic story. So after going back to the roadmap, after you get pre-approved, we're meeting today to do your buyer consult. I know Jeremy couldn't be with us today because he's sick with COVID, but usually we would do this with both of you together. We'll set up your home search after this, and then once we identify the right home for that rental property, we'll make an offer. We'll negotiate, and you'll start the underwriting process after we've made the offer and it's agreed by both parties, and then we get to closing day. So all in all, this process can move as fast as 45 days, but most people take somewhere between 6 and 8 months, just depending on how specific they're looking for, right? If there's a lot of rental properties available, then this process can happen pretty fast.
Okay.
So there's some benefits to new construction I like to hit on. There's little to no deferred maintenance. You get fresh toilets, no poop, and the builders also offer warranties. And as they build the neighborhood, they increase the prices, so you can have that built-in appreciation, if you buy early on in the process. So let's just talk about, we set up a search, we find that right home. I just want to give you a preview. When we make your offer, there's going to be some things we're going to talk about terms-wise. We're going to talk about your earnest money, which is your deposit, your down payment, which is the lender's going to help determine with you, your inspection timeline and your financing timeline, which I'll explain later, and then the closing date. So you'll submit an offer, which the offer paperwork, right, is actually written by the state of Florida attorneys for the state of Florida Realtor Association. So it's a standard, plug and play offer contract. So we complete that for you, and I'll advise you at what kind of terms I would recommend based on the market at the time of submitting the offer. And then your offer is going to be accepted, counter offered, or declined. Right. So once your offer is accepted, then immediately we'll have to get your deposit or your earnest money to the title company. We'll schedule an inspection. So the key things to remember there is the inspection is going to happen after you go under contract. The lender is going to require an appraisal to be done on the property, which is after the inspection. And then the rest is basically paperwork. We'll lock down your homeowner's insurance. You'll go through the underwriting process, and then we'll do the final walkthrough before closing. Does that process make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So your upfront cash, people are always asking, how much do I need for down payment? How much do I need for closing costs? Well, for down payment, because you guys are first-time home buyers, you could probably do as little as 3% down, whether you go the conventional route, if you have good credit scores, or the FHA route, which has more flexibility on credit scores as well. But for your upfront cash, right, you don't need all that money right at signing the contract. You need it at closing, but you do need your deposit, which is your earnest money deposit. We also call it the escrow deposit. If you just say deposit, we're good. And so that's going to be needed right after you go under contract. Usually that's about $1,000 for every $100,000 in purchase price. If you're shopping around 300,000, then we recommend 3,000, right? So that will be given to the title company once you go under contract, and that money will go toward your down payment at closing. Okay.
Sounds good.
So you're only going to lose that money. It's your skin in the game, but you're only going to lose that money if you close or if you cancel the contract right before closing. Otherwise, my job is to make sure that we protect that money, and that if you do have to cancel a contract, whether it's an inspection issue or financing issue, one of you, God forbid, loses your job, we can make sure we get that money back. So there's a whole bunch of inspections to know about. So just in general, a general home inspection will be roughly $350 to $550. So that is upfront money that you have to pay at the time of the inspection. And we can also do specific inspections, whether the property has a septic tank or termite damage or pool or sprinklers or anything like that. Each of those components can be inspected as well. And nowadays, with how the contracts are written, you do have an inspection period, right? So that's typically 7 days once you go under contract. And a lot of people ask me, well, what if I have buyer's remorse? Well, I wouldn't be too concerned about that, because during that inspection period, you can cancel the contract for whatever reason, whether you did an inspection or not. And you can cancel that contract and you would be entitled to get your deposit back. So, any questions so far?
Just with the inspection, I pay that correctly. Do I need to set that up, or you're going to take care of that for me?
Yeah, no, good question. So we do have inspectors that we've worked with before that we just refer to based off past customer feedback. So we'll send you that list, and then you can identify one you want to go with, or if you want us to pick, we'll just pick for you. And then we'll coordinate scheduling that between you and the listing team and the seller, right? To make sure that everyone's okay at when the inspection occurs.
Cool.
So the appraisal is the bank's way of knowing how much the property is worth. So they send out a specific person for that. You don't have to do anything related to the appraisal except pay for it. So it's another $500. It's due typically at the time that the appraisal is ordered. And then the appraiser will go out there and determine the value based off of recent comps. And if there's an appraisal issue, so say that, we write the contract for $300,000 and the appraiser comes back and says the property is only worth $295,000, then we got to problem solve whether you want to pay above appraised value, which is very common in this market, or if we can negotiate the seller down from purchase price to the appraised value. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Cool. So like I said, everyone always asks, how much is closing costs? So conservatively, you can estimate it's about 3% of the purchase price. Here are all the different kinds of closing costs that you'll probably see. When you talk to the lender, you can ask them for a fee worksheet, right? That's going to outline all of the costs from the lender, and they're going to have estimated costs for the title company. They will also be able to provide you on that fee worksheet a monthly mortgage statement. So we'll go through that too. I'll probably pull that up. We can kind of estimate, based off your monthly budget, what you're trying to stay within. But these are the closing costs fees that you'll see at the end. So like I said before, multiple listing service feeds, Zillow and Realtor.com. So everything we have access to is now available there. But if you are searching on Zillow instead of our website, which is pretty dope, please make sure to ignore pre-foreclosure, because pre-foreclosure means that someone's behind on a mortgage payment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the property is actually available for sale. I would also ignore foreclosure, because typically foreclosure properties are in some sort of state of disarray that prevents buyers from being able to get financing on them. And ignore pending. So pending, just so everyone knows, is when a buyer and seller have agreed on a purchase price and the property's under contract. Sometimes Zillow says pending, sometimes it says in contingent. All those properties you should just not search within, because essentially someone else has already locked that down. All right, so let's talk about your needs and wants. So we wanted to be around the Davenport area. We're looking for, something that can be a great rental property. What kind of size are you thinking for that?
So a 3.2 is fine with us. And then when it comes to like square footage, we don't want it to be too cramped. So we're looking at probably, I'd say, at least 1,800 square feet. It doesn't matter if it's single story or 2 stories. We don't care if it has stairs, but looking at your thing here, price, don't even know what the price would be, because obviously we still have to talk to the lender. But when it comes to where we're comfortable with a monthly, I'd say a monthly mortgage with everything, we want to try to keep it around 22. Right now we're at 2,000, but we feel like we're comfortable. We have some savings, so we'd be good with paying extra $200 a month in mortgage. So
perfect. And then type of the property, do we care if it's a townhome or single family home?
We want single family. definitely. And we would like to have a yard that we can fence. It doesn't have to be fenced, but
Perfect.
have the
So
option
that
to do
shouldn't be a
that.
problem. There's only a few handful of communities I know where they don't allow fencing, which is really weird.
Okay.
But do y'all have any furry family members that are going to be joining you on this?
Not
move?
yet, no. In the future, though.
Cool. I'm excited. Price. Cool. And then once we get to the end on closing day, it's pretty simple. You'll just wire the rest of your money that's due to the title company and bring some identification to prove that you are who you say you are. So let's talk about price. I'm going to go ahead and pull up this little calculator here. All right. So you can see down here on the bottom left, we have total estimate payment. So I'm going to hash out and just kind of work backwards, essentially knowing that 220 isn't your max. We're going to work backwards to determine what purchase price range that puts us in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to lower your down payment to 3% since you're first time home buyers. I'm going to lower the program rate, which is the same thing as the interest rate, to about 3.25. That's where I'm seeing majority of buyers sitting right now. Your guys said that your credit score was above 700, so I'm going to lower the PMI a little bit, but that's going to be dependent totally on your credit score. So your credit score is the thing that greatly and only impacts your interest rate and your PMI, right?
Okay.
So just keep that in the back of your mind. We're going to assume that because you're looking in the Davenport area that there's an HOA, so I'm going to put $75 a month for the HOA, especially for new construction. Insurance has gone up just a tad, so I'm going to bump that up to I think 75 a month, which is 900. And so now we're at 13,017. So fun fact, about for every $10,000 that you increase your purchase price or you increase the loan amount, it's going to equal about $50 more a month to your monthly payment. Okay. So if I bump this purchase price up to 400,000. Insurance, because insurances have gone up since roofs have been slightly changed. So the reason for that is, all those roofs that were replaced in 06, 07, 08 when those hurricanes just demolished us. All those roofs were replaced then, and they're all coming up on about 13, 14, 15 years old. And so that's why, insurance has gone up. But if we are in a newer community and the home that you do buy is less than 3 years old, it would probably be less than this estimate I have here. So insurance on new construction properties is actually very minimal just because of the warranties that the builder has. So bam. All right, and we just need to make an adjustment for taxes. All right, so once we budget this out, if we stay in that Davenport area and we're not in Claremont or Lake County and we don't have a CDD, we should be good. So just to give you an FYI, a CDD is a community development district. It's pretty popular in the new construction communities over there. And what that means is the municipality, when the developer was building the neighborhood, and rather than paying and outlaying the cost for the roads, the street lamps, the sewer systems, that kind of thing, the developer created this entity called the CDD, Community Tax Development District, which is essentially as a tax entity that is an overlay. So it lays on top of the rest of your property taxes for that specific community. So we've seen them be as much as an additional $100 a month in property taxes, and it's rolled into your property taxes. So it can take your property taxes and it can increase it a bit. So just a heads up there. We'll let you know, like if we're in a community that has a CDD, just because it's going to affect your monthly cost in the long run. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's something that you can tell me ahead of time, right?
Absolutely.
Like HOA, okay.
Yep, just like HOA.
Okay.
So right now, if we max this out, and I'm not saying we have to, but I want to showcase you the top end, so we'll work our way down. We're sitting at a purchase price of $370, and we're right around that budget of $22.18. I would say $18 is within the discrepancy area, right? Assuming this stuff is a little bit less. The big thing that you can control is homeowners insurance. When you shop for that, that's one thing you can control. Obviously, Your property taxes, you can't really control. HOA, you can or can't, whether you choose to live in an HOA community or not. And then PMI is just, like I said, all based on your credit score. So does that sound like a healthy budget?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I know this isn't exact, so yeah, I'm excited to find out what we can get pre-approved for.
Cool. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to do this right now. And jump in here. And we wanted rental, like already rented properties.
I mean, it can, yeah, makes sense. I like your idea of if it's already occupied, then just taking over.
Perfect. 1 second. I'm just going to give you a preview of, what kind of things come available just on the basic search. And then I'll set this up so that you get email notifications to your phone and you will be able to go through. So when you get these email notifications, you're going to be able to favorite or discard them. And then I'll be able to see that in my portal as well. And then with rental properties, when we do schedule showings, just please know that because they're tenant occupied, sometimes we have to give like 48 hours notice in order to schedule the showings. So right now for currently rented properties, there's not a lot available, but in the city of Davenport, we do have 2 available that are within your price range, right? So this is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. You definitely need a lot more space there. Appliances are new, so that's cool. 320. It's actually currently rented really low at 1650. I would definitely say that's low, but the timeline, right? The end lease date kind of aligns with early in the year with your timeline as well. So this would be kind of one example of an available property, right?
Yeah, okay. And then you can also have the option of having it not occupied. So
yeah, so I'm just searching occupied right now. So here's another one. 341 is the purchase price. Rental value or monthly rental is $1,800 a month, staying early in the year. So this one's actually located in Champions Gate. So this is actually built in 2020. So this is like brand new. So some investor bought this from the builder and then is immediately rented it out, which is nice. So it's barely lived in. So you guys could buy this and that person would essentially just pay for the mortgage for the first period of time. So what I'll do is once we get off this call, I'll set you up on this search as well as one for non-rental properties that you can then turn into a rental for that period of time. And you can look at them. And if you want me to crunch the cash flow numbers on how much those properties are cash flowing at certain rental rates, we can do that as well. We work with a great property manager who can help you fill the unit if the unit doesn't already have a tenant in it. And they can kind of manage it for the short period of time that you guys need before you move in. So any other questions?
What's the pricing like on that if I had someone do that for me, that company?
Yeah, typically property managers are charging somewhere between 8 and 10% of the gross rent. So
Okay.
10% off the top.
Cool.
Is what I would budget for. So, cool. Well,
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure, Gavin. I will send that intro email with you and Tim. So just shoot me a text when you see that come through your inbox so I know it went through.
Okay.
And then, like I said, when I set up the email search, there is going to be a link in the email search that you're going to have to click to activate the search so that you get those notifications. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
No problem. We'll send Jeremy my best wishes, and I hope he recovers quickly from COVID. And I will set this all up and touch base with you tomorrow to make sure it landed all in your inbox. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye. All right. Feedback. How'd I do? What should I change? What did you learn?
What a pro.
Thanks, Nick.
a lot of information for a first-time buyer.
Yes, it's almost overwhelming to them. But why do we do that?
To make them feel secure and you know what you're doing and you're the right person to find them their new home.
Yes.
You're also really good at just being personable and like connecting with the client over things non-real estate related, which I think is like awesome.
Thanks.
I learned that property managers take 8 to 10% off the top. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's why I wanted.
I'm glad you asked that question.
And that's off long-term rentals. Short-term rentals, they'll take like 20% off the top.
Oh, okay.
And don't they get a fee up front for the first month? They get like a fee for the first month of having the house.
They do. They'll take anywhere from half to the full month's rent to place the tenant in the property. And if you guys want to list a rental property, you can, right? But we don't property manage. So what that means is Nick has done this before. I know Angeleca has one coming up. If you have someone who wants you to has a rental property, but they don't want to process tenants and do showings, then you can list the rental property, charge them a full month's rent, pay $50 to the referring broker if there is one, process the applications, or obviously come to an agreement with the landlord as to how much work they want you to do, whether you're processing the applications or just collecting them, or if you're doing background checks or so on and so forth.
I need to learn more about how you do their monthly calculation estimate of where they're going to be, because you went through it so smoothly but so fast. I didn't keep up.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you saying that, because that means I can add that to another day and we can dive a bit deeper into doing it.
I'd like to learn just kind of where those numbers need to typically be, and how to explain what the average is and how they can go, how they can fluctuate, which ones do and which ones don't. That way I definitely have more confidence in presenting that, because that's a really great tool.
Does everybody have that tool?
Yes, I mean, I do.
If you don't, the link is in the chat, and it's also going to be on Slack in a minute. And the first link in chat is the EXPCon agenda, which has just come out, by the way. So check that out. So we can do a day of reviewing how to calculate monthly calculations or buyer estimates. What other things did I say that you'd want to dive deeper into?
I kind of have just a general question. You are so great at doing the consultation and it was very helpful, but I just kind of am wondering, where did you kind of, as someone that's starting these consultations, like where did you do a lot of role play? How did you kind of learn to be such a pro at these? I want to did you do a lot of practice, like I said, like role play, or what is the best way to, get going? Is it just kind of like trial and error and follow the presentation, or anything you can tip us on?
Yeah, so great question. So I never had a fun team group like this, so it was a crap ton of trial and error. And it just came down to what I noticed over time is you guys who are on this call, even the handful of people who may not be licensed yet, you guys know more about real estate and the real estate process than the average buyer, right? So what I learned early on in my sales career was every buyer is a first-time buyer, whether they say that or not in reality, right? Unless you're selling $1 million properties, your buyers have purchased very few properties in their life, right? So I felt like I was explaining the process a lot to buyers and over and over again. And so that's how I got the scripting of what I would say to them. So eventually that converted into a presentation because I figured that that presentation would build a crap ton of trust where they wouldn't actually talk to any other agent. So it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of practicing and a lot of just like going through the flow and keeping track of questions, right? If your customers are asking you specific questions, you're going to want to notate those questions, how you answer them, or, you know, come to myself or Lee and say, I got this question, I don't know exactly what to say, then we can give you the right verbiage, how to present it. But it definitely comes with experience, time, and practice. And so the more kind of conversations you have with more buyers, the more familiar and the more comfortable you'll get as you go through the process.
Yeah. I think my biggest thing right now is in getting over it is just confidence and like not and being worried about not having the answers to the questions. And that is like something I have to, you know, like you said, trial and error, but it's almost probably like the biggest catalyst into me cold calling is because I'm so afraid of not having the answers that these people are going to ask.
Yes.
So it's educating yourself and really putting the work in.
Mm-hmm. And there's a ton of recordings where, you know, no buyer consult is the same, right? So there's definitely a ton of recordings where, you know, that we've done somewhere in the university that that anyone could listen to, and that kind of showcase how the variety of questions that buyers can ask, right? So if you guys are available, then come to the next buyer consult that I do, and you know, we'll see what we're able to do from. You'll see what the actual customer asks, right? Because customers focus on whatever their sphere is. And that's the whole point of that's the whole other point of why we do buyer consults or why we do intake forms, is your goal as the agent, especially on the buyer side, is to eliminate their fear, right? If you're fearful to talk to them or fearful about the process because of uncertainty, they're probably gonna sense that. But our goal is to ask a crap ton of questions and then explain to them the process so we can alleviate that fear, especially if they're first-time homebuyers, because they have no idea what's going on, right? But if you ever get to a point where you don't know the answer, I would say just defer, right? Because there's many times in the beginning where I was doing buyer consults and someone would be like, how much is a septic tank inspection? And I'd never done a septic tank inspection before. So I'd be like, you know, I don't know. Let me check with one of our vendors and get back to you, right? Or sometimes they'll have, you know, specific loan questions. If someone dives deeper into specific loan questions, defer to the lender. That's not your question to answer, right?
Cool. Thank you.